Woo! Here I am, back again with a Flavor of the Month deck profile. Yeah, deck profile. So we'll just get this cracked on open here, going off of the all opening challenge because this was a card opened in January. Savra, sure, the Queen of the Golgari. So it is nice and serialized. So how about that? So when I pulled it, I was like, I can't sell this. I have to keep that card. We'll get these back on screen over here. So pull it up to the camera nice and close. Basically what happens is whenever you sacrifice a black creature, you may pay 2 life. If you do, each other player sacrifices a creature. But whenever you sacrifice a green creature, you gain 2 life. It's a nice, beautiful card there. So that's the main theme of the deck, is you want to sacrifice creatures, and you want to get your opponent sacrificing creatures to have empty board states, basically. Because you want to kind of create value where you can. So you have creatures, you can swing while having life and just kind of draining them. So for a couple of the first creatures we have is our standard ramp cards, like Yavimaya Elder. When it dies, search your library for up to 2 basic lands, reveal them, put them in your hand, and then you can just 2 generic sack them and draw a card. Classic Birds of Paradise and the Retro Frame Foil, flying, and then just add them out of any color. Topiary Stomper, Vigilance, when it enters, search for a basic land, put it on the battlefield, shuffle, but it can't attack or block unless you have 7 or more lands, so it's essentially you get a land and then sack fodder. Circular Tribe Elder, or Steve, everybody knows. Sack it, starts for a basic land, green card, you gain life. Elvish Mystic, tap, add green. Just some of your standard creature cards there. Then we go through a couple of the other ones. The Warden here, reach. If an creature opponent would die, exile it, create a Saproling. It pumps Saprolings, but it's more sack fodder. Same thing, Ogre Slumlord. Whenever a non-token creature dies, I may create a rat, sacrifice the rats. Rats are sack fodder. Spider enters the battlefield, sack another creature, and you can destroy permanent. When it dies, gain a life for each creature in your graveyard, and exile it from your graveyard. So life gain. And then the nice thing is, if the multicolored creatures, if it sacrifices, you get both the payoffs because it's a green and a black creature. So that's a huge, huge benefit to have those there. Green Artisan, sack creature, and tutor. Goes well with the theme. Like I said, you're here to sacrifice creatures, so just keep sacrificing. Deathrite Shaman, another standard card that has really just gone down in price. Exile land, add a mana, black, exile instant or sorcery card. Each opponent loses 2 life. Exile creature, you gain life. So you're going to need life because you're paying it into your commander, so life's important. And another aspect of this deck is things are going to be in the graveyard, and you want to kind of recur and get them back. So Eternal Witness, when it ETBs, return target card from your graveyard to your hand. Simple, straightforward. And then you sacrifice it. Blood Artist, another classic black creature card. Whenever another creature dies, target player loses 1 life, you gain a life. So burn them a little bit more, get some of your life back. Nether Trader, haste and shadow can only be block or be blocked by creatures with shadow. Whenever another creature card is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, you may pay 1 black, returning it from the graveyard to the battlefield. So repeated sacrifice here. Play a card, pay a black, get it back, sack it. We have this little vampire man here. Whenever a creature you control dies, deals 1 damage to each opponent, gain a life. Again, straightforward because a lot of things are going to die. And then we have the Carnage Dominus. Creature dying causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger. It triggers twice. And then you can get it indestructible by exiling. So yeah, very good card to make your commander's triggers happen 2 and or 4 times. Titan, when it attacks or blocks, sack a creature. Free sack outlet for an 11/10. Doesn't need much more there. Elvish Piper, tap a green and tap. Put a creature card from your hand in the battlefield. Easy way to cheat out some of the bigger creatures that we have sitting in the back, which I will, explain when we get there. Return permanent from your graveyard to your hand. So another card that brings things back. Harvester of Souls, you're going to need some card draw on decks, so what more of a perfect card to have it is a little bit of a high cost and a 6, but it has Death Touch. Whenever another non-token creature dies, you may draw a card. So it's not just you, it's any creature. When we have the Soul Steeper here, getting the T ready. Whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. And then pay 1, sacrifice another creature, gets plus X plus 0 until end of turn, where X is the sacrifice creature's power. Again, it fits the theme. Vampire Nighthawk, it's kind of just in here because it has the lifelink, Death Touch, and can be a good blocker if need be. Just something a little more versatile to keep the board state safe. Fleshbag Marauder. When it enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a creature. So you play it, you sacrifice Fleshbag Marauder, and then they end up having to sacrifice 2 creatures. Nice double up there. Braids Arisen Nightmare. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice an artifact, creature, enchantment, land, or planeswalker. If you do, each opponent may sacrifice a permanent that shares the card type with it. For each opponent that doesn't, that player loses 2 life, and I draw a card. You pick creature, you go off your commander's ability. They're forced to at least sacrifice a creature, and then if they don't, they lose life, you get a card. See? Nice and simple. Beast Whisper, when you cast a creature spell, draw a card. So you need card draw because you're going to need more things to play. Just keep your hand full, and you can keep playing the game. When the Thug dies, just dredge. So it gets dredge, and you can put a creature card from the graveyard on top of your library. So nice and simple. So with dredge, you can kind of keep doing that. Creekwood Liege, standard Liege stuff. Black creatures get +1/+1. Green creatures get +1/+1. And you may create a worm creature token. So you get a 3/3 creature token that you can just sacrifice. Nice and simple. Gisa, if a creature an opponent controls would die, exile instead. At the beginning of your upkeep, put all creature cards exiled with Gisa on a battlefield under control. They gain Decayed. Again, simple. You get creatures at the end of the day. You get your opponents to sacrifice creatures, and you get the creatures. A nice Resincath, the Foul-Blooded, Flying Trample. See, now we're getting at the point where these are the payoff cards here. So Flying Trample, pay 2 life, sack another creature, search your library for a card, and then put that card into your hand. So it's a big, 8-drop, but it's 8/8 Flying Trample, so it has the evasion, it has the trample, and a way to sacrifice on it to keep the board empty. Patron of the Vein, flying, when it enters the battlefield, destroy target creature an opponent controls. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, exile it, put a +1/+1 counter on it for each vampire you control. So, yeah, basically just more flying evasion card that gets a little bit bigger. Flying Trample, Ob Nixilis Unshackled. This is probably the payoff, like the best card on the deck in terms of creatures and what you're trying to do to win. Flying Trample, when an opponent searches their library, that player sacrifices a creature and loses 10 life. Whenever another creature dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Ob Nixilis. So if you're killing enough creatures, if everybody has to sack a creature, that's 3 or 4 triggers for Ob Nixilis, And then it gets pretty big as it starts as a 4/4, and before you know it, you're swinging for hopefully like 14. Hope's Demise, flying, when it has lifelink as long as there's 5 more counters on it. When another non-token control dies, put a counter on Tarbox. If that creature was a cleric, you may draw a card. If you do, lose a life. So it's basically the same thing as Ob Nixilis. It's flying, it doesn't have the trample, but it's going to build up over time. Shieldred Whispering one. I swear everybody knows this card by now. There's a couple more in the back. Swamp Walk, beginning of your upkeep, return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, so free recursion. Beginning of opponent's upkeep, that player sacrifices a creature. So if it works out well, everybody's going to be sacrificing a lot of things. Same thing, Zombie, when a card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, gains a counter. So flying, 3/3, counter. You see? Flying, repeat. Belarus, big card for the deck. Flying, at the beginning of each upkeep, create a 1/1 black-green pest creature token. When it dies, you gain a life. So it's black and green, so you're still gaining life by killing it because of the payoff in the game life of your commander. You can pay 10 life, untap all lands you control, activate only once per turn. So pretty big there. Massacre Worm enters, everything gets -2/-2. Whenever a creature and opponent control dies, player loses 2 life. So you see, you're killing their creatures, you're draining them. Sir Conrad, because there's 2 more creatures. Whenever another creature dies or a creature is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves the graveyard, Sarkhanite deals 1 damage to each opponent. So, pretty simple. It's easy inclusion if you're bringing things back from the graveyard, which goes into part 1 of a very nice combo that I'm running in the deck with this Bloodghast. Can't block, has haste as long as an opponent has less than 10 life, and the biggest part is this landfall trigger. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may return Bloodghast from your graveyard to the battlefield. It's going to go very well with a card, with an enchantment card that's later in the video, so I'm going to leave the Bloodghast up for when that comes. I will talk about it a little bit more. Now we are going to move into the instant part of the deck, which there are only a few. So we have Not Dead After All. It's recursion. When it dies, return to the battlefield, tapped and return to controls. It gets a wicked roll, which it gives it +1/+1. So brings it back. Worldly Tutor. Search for a creature card. It's a very standard tutor. 10 to the pests. You sacrifice a creature, so you're easier sack outlet, and you're creating those black and green pests that gain you life when they die. Very big. And then you have Empty the Pits with Delve, but you put X 2/2 black zombie tokens onto the battlefield. But Delve is each card you exile from your graveyard while casting this spell pays for 1. So when you're late game and you kind of just need a big board presence because everything's dead, you just delve your graveyard and empty the pits. Preferably at like your end step or something. So next we are on to the sorceries. So get that, put these back there for a little bit. Generic ramp, cultivate, 1 hand, 1 battlefield. My favorite all-time card is this alt art Farseek, but 4 of them and have them in various decks. Search your library for a mountain, for a plains, island, swamp, or mountain card, put it on the battlefield tap, shuffle your library. Nice and simple. Toxic Deluge, standard removal, additional cost to cast a spell, you pay X life, all creatures get -X/-X until end of turn for the life paid. Easy removal around indestructible. Grim Tutor, just another tutor to get you anything, either one of your combo pieces or your Obnixilis or something like that. Lose 3 life for 3. Put that card into your hand. Don't reveal it. Very nice. Victimize. Choose 2 target creature cards in your graveyard. Sack a creature. If you do, return the chosen card to the battlefield tapped. Very simple. Victimize way to return things. Same thing. Dread Return. Return target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. Like, it's a theme. We want, if these things die, you have something very important. It gets killed off. Like, you need to get your shield dread back. You dread return it. Same thing. Reanimate. 1 drop. Probably the best recursion spell in the deck. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield. Under your control, you lose life equal to its mana cost. Simple. Simple but effective. Now we are on to artifacts. Put those back until we get to there. So, Paradise Plume. Enters the battlefield, choose a color. Obviously, white, not white. Black or green. Whenever you cast a spell of the chosen color, you gain a life, and it's a mana rock. So it gets you a little bit of life back because it adds up fast with how much life you lose by just paying life. Lotus Petal, very underrated. 0, you sack it, add a mana of any color. Now another utility artifact here, which is Cauldron. It's a little steep, but 2, 1 and a black. Sack a creature, you gain a life, draw a card. So it still gets you the card draw, and it's pretty important adding, mana, card draw, that important stuff. Ashnod's Altar, sack a creature, add 2. So this is probably the best sack outlet in the deck because you don't have to pay anything to sack and you're actually gaining mana off of sacking the pest and you can bring something big. Aether Flux, casting a spell, you gain a life for each spell you've cast. You're trying to just keep your life up with having Aether Flux. If you get to 50, it deals 50 damage to any target. I've never had that happen yet in the deck, but it's in there for just trying to keep your life totals up. And same thing with Cosmos Elixir. Beginning of your ebb step, draw a card if your life total is greater than your starting life total. Otherwise, you gain 2 life. So it kind of gets you, 2 life back from paying the sack cost of your commander. So next we have our enchantment section of the deck, which is some of these are pretty important, I will say. Grave Pact. Whenever creature control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, each other player sacrifices a creature. Like, you don't need to say much more. That's pretty brutal. Vampiric Rites. Same thing. 1 drop for 2 sack cost. Sack a creature, gain a life, draw a card. It's the same thing as Witch's Cauldron. Just having another one in the deck's pretty important. Garruk's Uprising. When it or a creature with power 4 greater you draw a card, creatures get trample, and the same thing for greater, draw a card. So more card draw inclusion. Guardian Project. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it doesn't have the same name as another, you draw a card. Nothing in the deck is going to have the same name. Free card draw spell. Unnatural Growth. Trying to be part of your game ender with Omnics less than your flying creatures. Beginning of each combat, double the power and toughness of each creature you control until end of turn. So, helps protect you and really will do some damage. Oversold Cemetery. Begin with your upkeep. If you have 4 or more creature cards in your graveyard, you may return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So, not as good recursion, but still decent recursion to keep it going. Now the time for the very fun combo. We have Perilous Forays, Shorays. 1, sack a creature, search your library for a land card with basic land type, put it on the battlefield, tapped, then shuffle. So, you have this back. Basically, your phrase is on the battlefield. You sacrifice Bloodgeist. Land enters, comes back. Sack, you just continue the sack with it. So, you will need mana, but if everything goes well, you can empty out all the basic lands in your deck within a turn, and you essentially have unlimited mana, but you'll be progressed a lot faster. So this is the really fun combo. I did this a few times with this deck. It's very easy to pay off when it actually happens. So I'm going to leave him there to put back at the creature section. But yes, that is your... And it's a very cheap combo. I do think the Bloodgeist is like $5. I just looked it up. That's under $1. So it's a fun card combo to run. Then we will get into the Planeswalker section. So, Nissa of Shadowed Barts. Another landfall. When land enters the battlefield, you get a loyalty counter. Uptick 1, untapped land. Becomes an elemental, but you get an untapped land. And then the -5, you may put a creature card with CMC less than or equal to the number of lands you control onto the battlefield from your hand or graveyard. With 2+1/+1 counters on it. So, cheat out cards or recursion. It's great. Graced Hungergeist. It's an insect when it's not on the battlefield. +1. You get a green and black insect creature token. Then you mill a card. If it's an insect, you kind of repeat the process. We don't really run insects in here. This just gets you creatures. The minus thing is you -2 sack creature, so it's another sack outlet. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. So sack outlet removal, double sack, kind of. -5, each opponent loses life equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. So I think you understand what happens there when you have your yard is kind of filled with creatures. Then we move on to Liliana, Dreadhorde General. When a creature you control dies, draw a card. Kind of fits the theme really well. +1, create a black zombie creature token. -4, each player sacrifices 2 creatures, so in total you could probably get people to sacrifice 4 creatures. -9, each opponent chooses a permanent in control of each permanent type, sacks the rest. It's very good. It's very good for what you're trying to do by emptying everyone's board. Now we move on to the lands. So we'll start with the, multicolored and some of the utility lands here. So Crypt enters tapped, just adds a black, but 2 tap, add a black to your mana pool for each black creature in your graveyard. You're going to have a lot of them, trust me. Takimara, so add a black, channel for 4, mill 3 cards and return creature or planeswalker from your graveyard to your hand. Cost 1 less to activate for each legendary creature you control. Very simple. You can get that down to just paying 1. Then the other classic combo, the Seiju. 1 green, channel, discard it, destroy a target artifact, enchantment, or non-basic land an opponent controls. The player might search the library for a land card with a basic land type, put it on the battlefield. It costs 1 less for each legendary you control. Very solid removal. Yavimaya makes everything a forest in addition to its other types. So simple. Bajuka Bog taps for black, enters tapped, and you exile a graveyard. Nice and simple. Command Tower, mana of anything in your colors, any mana in your commander's identity. Reliquary Tower gives you maximum hand size and adds a generic. Golgari Rot Farm, the classic green black bounce land that taps for 2 when it's on the battlefield. Scry land in the temple. We have the Mire that taps for generic, or you pay into it and it taps for the set symbol colors there. And the Stadium is a fast land when you're playing Commander. It's never going to enter tapped. Woodland Cemetery. There's a battlefield tapped unless you control a swamp or a forest. Really shouldn't have a problem with that, but it's definitely multicolored. Deathcap Glade. There's a battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands. Okay, nice and simple. Pathway. Well, green, black pathway. Whenever you need, flip it to the side. Very beautiful overgrown tomb. Nice and shiny. Shockland, may pay 2 life, enters untapped. Taps for black and green. And a Necro Blossom Snarl. There's a battlefield. You may reveal a swamp or forest card from hand. If you don't, enters tapped. Taps for black and green. Nice and simple. It's basically a reskinned mana base of one of my other decks that I took apart and built this. Because I was like, I don't want to have 2 black-green decks. Then you have, I think it's like, can't remember, I'll count them out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 forests. Basic lands. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 basic swamps, because I think I ran the calculations and there's more black pips than anything. But if you notice, the basics are all foil, so it means I keep the deck together. Little tip you'll see as I'm doing these deck tech profiles of my version of the deck. So if you made it this far, thanks for walking all the way through. I think I'll have it posted on Tapped Out again. No one really gave feedback if they still use that website. I've been using Mana Box, so maybe I'll put a Mana Box link in there as well. We'll see how it goes. Maybe, if that's something people are interested in. But yeah, that's my Queen of the Golgari deck tech, my beautiful serialized pull, which, again, you can see if you watched either the complete opening of the Ravnica, which I will have pinned here, or if you want to just watch the standard basic I open up everything, because I did that video first and I'm following it up with this deck tech just to show off one of the cool cards that I built with it. So again, thank you all. Had a great year. I hope you enjoy this deck tech, and if you like it, maybe you'll build it and it'll work for you in the future. So peace out, y'all. Gotta end you with the bell ring, you know it.